I have witnessed many peculiar things in this life, but nothing compares to the danger of seeing too much truth too soon. Yes, that very phrase echoes through me like the tremor of a brushstroke drawn too quickly across fresh plaster. If you have ever felt the unsettling pull of intuition, the kind that strips away illusions before the world is ready to lose them, then you already know the trembling edge of this danger. And if you are among the mysterious, the intuitive, the quietly spiritual ones, you recognize the sensation of arriving too early to a truth the rest of the world has not yet begun to suspect. It is as if your eyes pierce the veil before the candle has been lit, and you find yourself in a room illuminated not by the world, but by the inner fire no one else sees. I speak to you not as a man of marble and dust, but as someone who spent his life observing the fragile anatomy of perception. There were moments in which truth erupted before me like a sudden beam of light entering a dark chamber, and though such light reveals the structure of things, the bones beneath the skin, the gears beneath the spectacle, it can also blind those who are unprepared to behold it. Seeing too much truth too soon is not a blessing received with applause, it is a solitary initiation. If you know this sensation, then you know the invisible weight carried by those who walk ahead of others without meaning to. Perhaps you have felt it, that quiet shock when you notice the emotional machinery moving beneath someone's smile, or when you sense the loneliness hiding inside the voice of someone who claims to be fine, or the moment you perceive the fragility of a relationship long before the final fracture. It is an uncomfortable clarity, like touching the outline of a sculpture still buried in marble. The world tells you to wait, to pretend, to act as though the stone is still whole, while your fingers have already found the emerging shape within. Those who are mysterious, intuitive, and spiritual often carry this early sight like a secret lantern. It glows softly in the chest, illuminating intentions, illusions, and hidden fractures that others are not yet prepared to see. And yet, this lantern burns the bearer first, but when you see too much truth too soon, you are forced to navigate a world that still speaks in shadows. You walk through a marketplace of masks while your vision pierces the painted expressions. It is not arrogance, it is simply that your eyes refuse to lie. In my youth, I believed such vision was a divine gift, but as time unfolded, I learned it is also a burden. A painter sees the world differently. Light fractures, colors dance, shadows whisper, but seeing human truth is far more complex. A canvas never hides its flaws, human beings do. And when you see the truth beneath them too early, you become an outsider in your own era, an observer standing at the edge of the stage, watching the actors, unaware of the script they are performing. You, who are drawn to intuition, carry this same displacement. Perhaps you do not speak of it, but you feel it, a strange loneliness that arises not from isolation, but from perceiving things others have not yet realized. You hear the crack in the foundation before the building collapses. You sense the shift in someone's spirit before they admit it to themselves. You feel the oncoming storm while the sky still appears calm. And because of this, you often find yourself misunderstood, or worse, dismissed. Seeing too much truth too soon disrupts the rhythm of belonging. It makes you question whether you should reveal what you see or remain silent, allowing events to unfold in their natural decay. It forces you into a kind of spiritual discipline, the patience to let others discover their own truth in their own time. But just as one cannot force a bud to bloom by pulling its petals, one cannot force awareness upon a mind still wrapped in its protective cocoon. I learned this the hard way. There were times when I spoke too soon, revealing a pattern, a motive, a consequence long before those around me were ready to consider it. Their eyes would narrow, not in understanding, but in confusion, sometimes even fear. They could not fathom how I could see what they themselves had not yet felt. And so I learned the quiet art of holding truth gently, as one holds a fragile instrument. For truth delivered too early is rarely welcomed. It is often rejected as fantasy, exaggeration, or suspicion. But you, yes, you, already know this dance. You have felt the sting of recognizing someone's hidden intentions, only to be told you are overthinking. You have sensed the beginning of the end in a friendship, a love, a project, long before the surface began to crack. You have known the unsettling moment when your intuition reveals a path others refuse to acknowledge. And so you carry your insight like a secret, both blessing and burden, waiting for the world to catch up. This is the true danger of seeing too much truth too soon. Not that the truth harms you, but that the timing does. A truth revealed before its season is like fruit plucked before it ripens. It nourishes no one, it leaves a bitter taste, and yet the intuitive soul cannot help but see ahead, as though positioned slightly outside the flow of time. I speak to you now because perhaps you have been questioning this part of yourself, wondering why you feel disconnected, or why your insights often appear too sudden, too sharp, too early, wondering why others do not understand what seems so clear to you. It is not a flaw, it is a sensitivity, a heightened perception like the acuity of a painter who sees the curve of a shadow before the object fully forms. And the real question, the one you may carry silently, is what to do with this vision that arrives too soon, too often, too intensely. There is a way, but it requires understanding the nature of truth itself and the rhythm by which it chooses to reveal its layers. When one sees too much truth too soon, the world begins to resemble a vast fresco where the paint has not yet dried. Every gesture, every word, every silence becomes a brushstroke, revealing more than the artist intended. And you, mysterious soul, intuitive wanderer, quiet observer of spirits, find yourself reading this unfinished mural long before others realize they are even part of its composition. It is a peculiar sensation, almost unsettling, to witness the underlying structure of human drama while those around you still believe they are improvising. You sense the architecture of emotions the same way I once sensed the anatomy beneath the surface of a subject's skin. It is not magic. It is sensitivity sharpened by the weight of experience. I confess something to you. Truth has never approached me gently. It has always arrived abruptly, like a sudden opening in the clouds, casting a beam of light onto something the world would prefer remain hidden. And in those moments I felt what perhaps you too have felt, an internal tremor, a silent recognition that what I saw was not meant to be seen yet. The faces around me continued their performance, unaware that I had glimpsed the trembling string behind the curtain. You know this sensation intimately. You have recognized intentions concealed beneath politeness, felt betrayals before they materialized, or sensed the unraveling of a situation others insisted was perfectly intact. For those who are intuitive and spiritually attuned, truth is not revealed in words, but in textures. It appears in the tightening of a jaw, in the flicker of discomfort in someone's eyes, in the unnatural stillness that precedes disappointment. It appears in the energy of a room, the emotional pressure in the air, the unspoken tension vibrating like a dissonant chord, and you pick up these frequencies without effort, as though your spirit is an instrument tuned more finely than most. But this heightened perception comes at a cost. When you see truths too early, you begin to feel like a traveler who has arrived at a village at dawn, while the rest of the world is still asleep. You stand in the empty streets, watching the first hints of light illuminating the stones, while everyone else remains wrapped in dreams. And though the beauty of the early light is undeniable, so is the loneliness of being awake when others are not. Perhaps you have felt this loneliness without fully naming it. The way conversations become exhausting when you already perceive the deeper layers beneath the surface. The way relationships grow heavy when you sense the fractures long before the break. The way crowds feel overwhelming because you absorb more than simple gestures. You absorb intentions, insecurities, contradictions. You walk through life collecting signals others are blind to, and you carry them in silence because explaining them would expose you as someone who sees too much. And yet I must tell you something with the candor of one who has lived in both light and shadow. The world fears those who see ahead, not because you threaten them, but because your vision disrupts the comfortable timeline they depend on. People feel safest when truth arrives slowly, gently, predictably. But your perception does not obey such decorum. It reveals the hidden architecture of their choices before they themselves are ready to confront it. And so, instead of gratitude, they often respond with confusion, denial, or retreat. There were times when I warned patrons, colleagues, or students about paths I sensed they were taking, paths that would lead to heartbreak, failure, or disillusionment. They would smile politely, dismissing my words as unnecessary caution, and weeks or months later, they would return, surprised by the very outcome I had already foreseen. But by then, the truth had ripened to the stage where they could finally digest it. This is the rhythm of human awareness. It unfolds in seasons, and no amount of genius or intuition can accelerate the maturation of someone else's understanding. You too have stood in this delicate place, between insight and silence, between urgency and patience. Part of you wants to speak, to warn, to illuminate, but another part knows the futility of revealing truth to those who still resist seeing it. And so you hold it within, carrying the weight of what you know like a sealed letter that cannot yet be delivered. This tension shapes your inner life. It creates a duality, outwardly calm, inwardly swirling with unspoken clarity. Others may mistake your quietness for detachment, but in truth your silence is an act of compassion. You have learned the hard lesson that awareness cannot be imposed. Like light entering a room through a narrow window, truth must enter at the angle each person is ready to receive. And yet, there is another consequence, one rarely acknowledged. Seeing too much truth too soon means you often lose the luxury of innocence. You cannot pretend not to know what you already know. Even if you try to avert your gaze, the truth continues to pulse beneath the surface, calling you back. This loss of innocence can make the world feel heavier, almost burdened with unnecessary detail. It is like a painting in which every brushstroke is visible, every crack, every flaw. And while others admire the scene from a distance, you see the fingerprints beneath the pigment. But in this heavy clarity there is also an invitation, a subtle doorway into a deeper dimension of existence. Those who see early, who sense the invisible currents, who perceive the truth before it takes form, they are not cursed. They are simply positioned differently in the grand choreography of life. They stand at the threshold between worlds, the world of appearances and the world of essence. Yet even as I tell you this, I feel the stirring of the next revelation, one that reshapes the burden of early vision into something entirely different. For the pain you feel is not a punishment. It is a signal of transformation, a shift not in what you see, but in how you carry what you see. There comes a moment, if you are among those who see too much truth too soon, when the world begins to look less like a stage and more like a vast anatomy lesson. You stop being distracted by the costumes and gestures and start perceiving the underlying structure, the bones of intention, the muscles of desire, the nervous trembling of fear. Every human being becomes a living study, a canvas of emotions layered like glazes in an oil painting, and you, with your intuitive sight, cannot help but observe the fractures before they widen, the shadows before they thicken, the light before it fully rises. You do not ask for this. It happens naturally, as though your spirit were crafted with a sensitivity finer than most. You read people not through their words, but through the subtle tremors they leave in the air. You perceive energy shifts the way a sculptor feels the resistance of stone, and although such perception gives you a certain power, it also makes you vulnerable, for you cannot turn it off. Truth arrives uninvited, flooding your awareness before your heart has time to prepare. I recall moments when I would study a subject's face for a portrait. While others saw only the curve of the cheek, I saw the sadness they concealed, the fatigue settled beneath their eyes, the quiet longing pressed into the tension of their lips. Their stories revealed themselves to me without confession, and though I could capture these truths in paint, in life I could not expose them. I had to carry what I saw in silence, for truth is a delicate substance, too potent to administer without care. You know this delicate burden well. You sense when someone's laughter is hollow. You detect the moment someone drifts away emotionally, even if they are standing right in front of you. You feel dishonesty not through logic, but through an almost tactile shift in the atmosphere, like a faint tremor beneath the earth. And when you try to explain it, others treat your insight as exaggeration, paranoia, or imagination. They do not understand that your perception is not a choice. It is a form of spiritual anatomy, a deeper sensitivity stitched into your being. At times, this early vision feels like a betrayal. You anticipate endings before beginnings have even softened into form. You see the potential collapse of relationships, while others celebrate their beginnings. You sense the truth someone is hiding long before they gather the courage to speak it. And so you live in a world where time seems out of sync, your understanding racing ahead, while others drag behind, unaware of the unfolding pattern. This temporal dissonance creates a quiet suffering, not the kind that wounds the body, but the kind that weighs on the soul. You witness people stumbling toward consequences you already foresee, and you must restrain yourself from intervening because you know, either from experience or intuition, that they are not prepared to hear it. The truth delivered too soon becomes noise, resistance, or even hostility. and so your silence becomes both shield and prison. Those who are mysterious, intuitive, and spiritually attuned often carry a hidden ache, the ache of watching others walk toward lessons you have already learned. It is like standing at the edge of a cliff, seeing the crack beneath someone's footing while they marvel at the view. You want to call out, to warn them, but your voice would only be met with confusion, for they cannot see the danger you see. They stand in the light while you perceive the structure of the shadow about to form, but here is where the truth deepens. Seeing too much truth too soon is not merely a burden, it is an initiation, a calling into a different kind of maturity. You do not see early because you are strange, or broken, or dramatic. You see early because your spirit is aligned with a finer resolution of reality. You perceive the subtle currents beneath the surface, the hidden mechanics of emotion, the quiet foreshadowing in human behavior, and this early perception forces you into an accelerated evolution. You learn to let go earlier, you detach earlier, you grieve earlier, you understand earlier. And though this premature wisdom isolates you, it also shapes you into someone capable of deep emotional intelligence. While others cling to illusions for comfort, you touch the truth, even when it burns. And this willingness to face what is real rather than what is convenient sets you apart. But the paradox is this: what once felt like a wound gradually becomes a doorway. The pain of early awareness transforms into clarity, resilience, and a profound inner stillness. You stop fighting the truth and begin to flow with it. You stop fearing what you see and begin to navigate life with the quiet confidence of someone who trusts their inner sight. And it is here, in this strange overlap between suffering and awakening, that the greatest shift occurs. You realize that the danger was never in seeing the truth. The danger was in believing you had to carry it alone. When you understand that your vision is not a curse but a craft, like painting, sculpting, or observing the flight of birds, you begin to wield it with grace. Those who see too much truth too soon are not doomed. They are simply ahead. And being ahead requires patience, compassion, and the wisdom to hold what you know without allowing it to harden your heart. But there is a moment, subtle yet profound, when the entire meaning of this early sight changes. A moment when what once felt like a burden becomes a revelation, reshaping your relationship with truth itself. There comes a turning point for every soul who sees too much truth too soon, a moment as subtle as the shift of a shadow across a marble wall, yet powerful enough to alter the entire architecture of your inner world. It happens quietly, almost imperceptibly, like dawn bleeding through the cracks of a shuttered window. One day you no longer feel wounded by what you see. Instead, you feel awakened, not triumphant, not superior, simply aware, as though the universe has been whispering to you in a language only now becoming clear. For a long time, early truth feels like a weight pressing against your ribs. You carry predictions, intuitions, unspoken realizations like hidden sketches stuffed beneath your cloak. But eventually you begin to understand that this sensitivity is not demanding to be spoken, it is demanding to be understood. The pain was never in the vision itself. The pain was in your belief that truth must always be shared, corrected, or prevented. You felt responsible for others' outcomes, others' choices, others' lessons. You believed your early sight obligated you to intervene. But this belief begins to dissolve, slowly, gently, like pigment mixing with water. You start to see that truth has its own timing. Just as a seed cannot be forced to bloom, awareness cannot be forced to ripen. You, who always stood at the threshold of what others could not yet see, begin to realize that your role is not to pull anyone into the light. Your role is to see the light, hold the light, and embody the light, even when the world remains in shadow. This realization is the quiet revolution of the intuitive and the spiritual. You begin to understand that your gift is not a command, it is a compass. It guides you, not them. It teaches you when to stay, when to walk away, when to remain silent, when to speak with gentle precision. You no longer rush to expose what others are not ready to confront. You let life unfold with the patience of an artist, letting fresh paint dry. And in this patience, you find a strange, unexpected peace. You also notice another transformation. The loneliness you once felt begins to shift into solitude. Loneliness aches. Solitude breathes. Loneliness isolates. Solitude strengthens. Loneliness says, "No one sees what I see," while solitude whispers, It is all right that others do not. In this shift, you begin to understand the true power of early truth. It is not meant to connect you through explanations. It connects you through presence, through the calm steadiness of someone who no longer fights what they perceive. You start observing people with a softer gaze. Where before you saw their patterns and flaws with sharp clarity, you now see their innocence, their timing, their slow blooming. You see that they are not resisting truth to hurt you. They are resisting because their soil is not yet ready, and so you stop feeling frustrated with those who cannot yet see what you see. You allow them the dignity of their own journey. This is the paradox that changes everything. The moment you stop trying to manage the truth for others is the moment you begin to master it within yourself. Your intuition sharpens not through effort, but through surrender. Your spiritual depth expands not through confrontation, but through acceptance. You stop burning energy on resistance. You become a quieter, deeper version of yourself, like the shadows inside a cathedral that make the stained glass glow. You move through the world with a calm authority, the kind that does not need to be justified or proven. Those around you feel it even when they cannot explain it. And here lies the unexpected beauty. People begin coming to you, not because you impose truth upon them, but because your presence invites them into it. They feel safer with you, even if they do not know why. They sense clarity in your silence, understanding in your eyes, patience in your demeanor. You become a kind of sanctuary, a refuge for those whose illusions have begun to crack. And when they finally turn toward the truth they once feared, you are there, not to judge, not to instruct, but simply to illuminate. This is when early truth stops feeling like exile and starts feeling like leadership. Not leadership of authority, but leadership of spirit. You become someone who navigates life not by the noise of the world, but by the subtle compass within. You begin making choices that protect your peace, not your image. You gravitate toward people who value authenticity, depth, and emotional intelligence. You stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop dimming your sensitivity to fit inside the narrow frames others call normal. Instead, you allow yourself to be what you truly are, a being who sees beneath and beyond the surface of things. And as this acceptance grows, something even more profound happens. The truths that once arrived too early begin arriving right on time, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have aligned yourself with the natural flow of awareness. You have stopped fighting the rhythm and begun dancing with it. The danger you once feared softens into a doorway that leads to mastery, serenity, and a deeper communion with life's hidden structures. You become in many ways like a painter who no longer panics when the sketch reveals too much. You simply understand that revelation is part of creation, and yet, for all this newfound clarity, there remains one final transformation, one truth that completes the cycle and turns early sight into true wisdom, a truth that reveals why you were given this vision in the first place. There is a final truth that reveals itself only after you have endured the weight of seeing too much, the loneliness of being misunderstood, the quiet evolution of learning to hold your insight without forcing it upon the world. It arrives slowly, like the last ray of sunset lingering on a stone wall, subtle, warm, transformative. And when it finally unveils itself, you understand why your vision has always seemed to run ahead of time, why truth whispered to you before it dared speak to others. The truth is this: you were not meant to see early so you could warn others. You were meant to see early so you could become who you truly are. The gift of early perception was never about predicting events, or uncovering secrets, or decoding the pulses beneath human behavior. Those were merely side effects, shadows cast by a deeper purpose. The real reason you have always sensed truths before they ripened is because your spirit is wired for depth. You are designed to pierce illusions, not because the world needs correction, but because you need clarity to evolve. Seeing truth early shapes you into a rare kind of being, one who does not depend on external narratives to understand reality.